The Bible is clear. Helping the wrong people can be harmful. Not all help builds up. Not all aid transforms. And most importantly, not every cry for help should be answered. The difference between being a blessing and becoming an enabler of someone else's mistakes is something you need to understand today. True kindness isn't about rescuing indiscriminately. It's about acting with discernment. Jesus taught us this. He healed, he taught, he restored lives, but he also set boundaries. Matthew 7:6 warns us, "Do not give what is holy to dogs, nor throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to tear you to pieces." In other words, there are moments when helping isn't an act of love. It's an act of recklessness. How many times have you tried to help someone who never appreciated your effort? How many times have you exhausted yourself trying to lift up someone who deep down never truly wanted to change? If you relate to this, then this message is for you. And today, we're going to talk about who you should not help unless you're willing to pay a high price for it. Some people don't want solutions. They want attention. They want you to listen to their complaints, feel sorry for them, and be moved by their stories. But when you offer a way out, they simply ignore it, complain, and come up with new excuses, because deep down, they don't want to escape the problem. They just want someone to carry them. The Bible teaches us about this. When Jesus met the paralyzed man at the pool of Bethesda, he asked a simple question: "Do you want to be healed?" John 5:6, but instead of answering yes, the man started making excuses. He said he had no one to help him. He said he always arrived too late. He said others had an advantage over him. He didn't realize that his healing was standing right in front of him. And that's exactly how eternal victims behave. They never take responsibility. They always believe the world is unfair to them. And every time you try to help, they bring up a new problem, a new excuse, a new drama. Because what they want isn't change, it's attention. And if you don't realize this in time, you'll end up being sucked into an endless cycle. The truth is, some people don't want to be freed. They just want someone to carry their burdens, and while you waste your energy trying to save them, you end up drifting away from what truly matters. And if there's anyone who seems like an eternal victim but takes it even further, manipulating and draining your energy, it's the overly needy person. We all need support. We all need a shoulder to lean on. But some people are never satisfied. No matter how much you do for them, it's never enough. It's never sufficient. They always want more. More attention, more time, more affection, and, if you're not careful, you'll end up living just to meet their needs. The Bible warns us about this. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Proverbs 18:24. This means that friendship and support are important, but when someone demands too much, when they turn your presence into an obligation, when they suffocate you with needs that never end, that's no longer a healthy relationship. Becomes a burden. Because the truth is, some people don't want to grow emotionally. They don't want to learn how to handle loneliness. They don't want to seek support in God. They just want to drain your energy, and if you don't recognize this, you'll end up carrying a weight that was never yours to bear. Helping is an act of love. But when that help turns into chains that tie you down, you need to ask yourself, does this person truly want help? Or do they just want someone to carry their emotional baggage? Because sometimes the best thing you can do isn't giving more. It's walking away. And just as destructive as enabling someone's neediness is enabling their laziness. It's a behavior that steals opportunities, destroys destinies, and leads to ruin. The Bible is clear about this. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Proverbs 10. And more than that, if anyone will not work, neither shall he eat. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. This means that when someone refuses to take action, it's not your job to carry them on your shoulders, because every time you insist on helping a lazy person, you're not being generous. You're being irresponsible. God established the law of sowing and reaping. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. Galatians 6. And this law must be respected. If someone chooses idleness, they must reap the consequences of that choice. That's exactly what Jesus showed in the parable of the talents. The servant who buried his talent instead of multiplying it was called wicked and lazy and was cast out. The truth is, some people only learn when they face consequences, and when you interfere in this process, you're only delaying what God is trying to teach them. If you keep rescuing someone who doesn't want to change, you need to understand that is not your mission, and just as destructive as enabling someone's laziness is helping someone who never values what they receive. Because nothing is more exhausting than ingratitude. There's nothing worse than helping someone who doesn't appreciate it. Ingratitude isn't just rude or a simple oversight. It reveals a corrupt heart that fails to recognize the value of what it has. That's exactly what happened when Jesus healed 10 lepers. 10 men received a miracle. 10 men were freed from a disease that condemned them to isolation and suffering. But only one came back to say thank you. And what did Jesus say? Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Luke 17:17. God notices ingratitude, and more than that, it closes doors. Because when someone doesn't value what they receive, they are not worthy of receiving more. And how often does this happen? You give your time. You invest your energy, your resources. You do everything you can to help, and in the end, the person doesn't even acknowledge your effort, or worse, they act like you never did anything for them. The Bible warns us about this. Evil will never leave the house of one who repays good with evil. Proverbs 17:13. This means that helping an ungrateful person doesn't just drain you emotionally, it opens the door to a cycle of abuse and disrespect, because someone who doesn't value your help today will demand even more tomorrow. Someone who doesn't appreciate what they receive will use and discard you, and if you keep insisting, you're only going to get hurt over and over again. Because some people don't see gratitude as a virtue. They see it as a right. And if you don't realize this in time, you'll end up completely drained for someone who never recognized your effort. And just as dangerous as enabling someone's ingratitude is helping those who refuse correction. Because pride is one of the greatest obstacles to transformation. And that's what we'll talk about next. Few things make a person as unreachable as pride. The proud person doesn't accept help, correction, or change. They would rather walk toward destruction than admit they need direction. And the Bible makes this very clear. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. This was the downfall of many throughout history. It was the downfall of Nebuchadnezzar, who exalted himself in his power and had to be humbled before he recognized that God is sovereign over all things. It was the downfall of Pharaoh, who hardened his heart time and time again, until his pride brought destruction upon himself and his entire nation. And it's still the downfall of many today, because some people don't want to be helped. Not because they don't need help, but because they refuse to admit it. And trying to help someone like that is like trying to fill an upside-down cup. Nothing gets in. Nothing transforms. Nothing changes. The Bible warns us. Do you see a person wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for them. Proverbs 26:12. And that's the reality. Arrogance closes doors. It prevents growth. It blocks opportunities. And worse than that, it pushes away the very grace of God. Because God does not walk with the proud. God resists the arrogant, but He gives grace to the humble. So before you extend a helping hand, ask yourself, is this person willing to change, or will they reject the truth, persist in their mistakes, and disregard the help they receive? Because someone who refuses to listen isn't ready to be helped. And if there's anything more dangerous than pride, it's when that resistance turns into something even worse. Something God openly condemns, a path of wickedness and rebellion. As you can see, Helping someone is an act of love. But when that help turns into complicity with sin, it stops being love and becomes rebellion against God. The Bible has warned us about this from the very beginning. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. Psalm 1:1. What does this mean? It means that some people walk against God. They live deliberately in disobedience. They don't want change, transformation, or repentance. And when you insist on helping someone like that, you're putting yourself on the wrong path. The difference between a repentant sinner and a sinner who takes pride in their sin is that one seeks redemption, while the other despises the truth. And the Bible is full of examples of this. Jezebel ignored every warning and was destroyed by her own wickedness. Cain rejected correction and brought a curse upon himself. Judas walked with Jesus, but chose betrayal, and all of them suffered the consequences of their choices. Because God is merciful, but He does not tolerate sin. And when you help someone who embraces sin, you risk becoming complicit in their rebellion. The Word warns us, "Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common?" 2 Corinthians 6:14. That's why, before helping someone, ask yourself, does this person truly want transformation? Or are they just using your help to keep living in sin? Because some people don't want to be saved, they just want you to sink with them. And if there's one type of person who perfectly illustrates this truth, it's the fool. The one who refuses to learn, insists on their mistakes, and ignores all wisdom. And that's what we'll talk about next. The Bible teaches us that there is a type of person who never learns. Someone who ignores warnings, who repeats the same mistakes, expecting different results. That person is the fool. And God's word is very clear about this. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Proverbs 13:20. Fools don't listen to advice. They don't learn from experience. They don't accept correction. And no matter how many times you try to help, they always go back to the same mistakes. The Bible describes this in very strong terms. As a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats his folly. Proverbs 26:11. And how many times have you seen this happen? You warn them. You advise them. You show them the risks. But the fool doesn't listen. They always think they know better. They always believe they can do it their own way. And when everything falls apart, there they are again, asking for help. But what's the problem with that? The problem is that helping a fool isn't an investment, it's a waste, because they don't change. They repeat the same cycle. They ignore every lesson, and in the end, you exhaust yourself trying to save someone who will never learn. Proverbs 26 warns us, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him." In other words, if you keep trying to help a fool, they won't change, but you might end up becoming just as foolish as they are, and just as dangerous as the fool is the one who manipulates, lies, and deceives. Because while the fool destroys their own life, the manipulator destroys the lives of others. Not every need is genuine. Not every plea for help is sincere. Some people aren't looking for support. They're looking for control. They don't want solutions. They want an advantage. And they'll use any means necessary to get what they want. The Bible warns us about this. The Lord detests lying lips, but He delights in those who are trustworthy. Proverbs 12:22. Dishonesty isn't just a character flaw, it's a weapon of destruction, and the manipulator has mastered this craft. They lie. They twist the truth. They create stories to make you feel sorry for them, and before you even realize it, you've already been pulled into their game. They use guilt to make you feel responsible. They use sweet words to hide their true intentions. They use empty promises to gain your trust, and in the end, you're the only one who loses. The Bible teaches us how to recognize these people. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. Matthew 7:15. Manipulators don't show up as enemies. They pretend to be victims. They pose as friends. They act trustworthy. But in reality, they only care about what they can take from you. And if you don't open your eyes, you'll end up falling into their trap. Because manipulators don't feel gratitude. They only feel need. And once they no longer need you, they simply discard you. The question is, how long will you allow this to happen? Because sometimes helping isn't an act of compassion, it's a mistake. And just as destructive as being deceived by a manipulator is trying to help someone who refuses to change, someone who has already had every chance, but chose to keep making the same mistakes. Not everyone who makes mistakes is lost, but there is a big difference between someone who repents and someone who just keeps sinning without remorse. The Bible is very clear about this. If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left. Hebrews 10:26. God always extends his hand to those who turn to him. But for those who deliberately choose sin, there is no redemption. There is no change. There is no transformation because they don't want to change. They've already had opportunities. They've already received warnings, they've already been advised, but they chose to stay on the same path. And if you insist on helping someone like that, you need to understand. You are wasting your time. Jesus himself taught this in the parable of the prodigal son. The father didn't stop his son from leaving. He didn't try to convince him to stay. He didn't shield him from the consequences of his choices. He simply let him reap what he had sown. And only when the son lost everything, only when he felt the pain of his own decisions, did he truly repent. What does this mean? It means that sometimes the best thing you can do is let a person face the consequences of their choices. Because some people only learn that way. It's not cruelty. It's not a lack of compassion. It's wisdom. And if there's one thing you should seek before helping anyone, it's the discernment that comes from God. Because not every form of help is true rescue, and not every act of saving is an act of love. Not every rescue leads to transformation. So how do you know when to help someone and when to step back? Well, if there's one thing we need to understand, it's that true wisdom comes from God. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And in all you're getting, get understanding. Proverbs 4:7. Before helping someone, ask God. Pray. Seek discernment. Ask for direction. Because not every battle is yours to fight. Not every person wants to be saved, and if you're not careful, you might end up exhausting yourself for someone who never wanted to change. Jesus himself taught about boundaries. He helped, healed, and set people free. But he never forced transformation on anyone. He said, "If anyone wants to follow me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." Matthew 16:24. The choice was always theirs, and that means you can't change anyone by force. You can't carry burdens that aren't yours. You can't keep helping someone who rejects help. Sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and let God work, and trust that he knows what he's doing, because God takes care of his own. He corrects those he loves. He restores those who turn to him. And sometimes, what seems like abandonment is actually the beginning of true transformation. Now, the decision is yours. Will you keep exhausting yourself for someone who doesn't want to change, or will you seek wisdom from God to know who truly deserves your help? And when it's time to walk away, may he give you discernment, strength, and courage to do what is right, even if it means stopping the help. Share this message. If this video spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Someone might need to hear this exact message today. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with 3 people you love. And tell me in the comments, have you ever helped someone and regretted it? I'll be reading every comment. I want to hear your story. Oh, and before you go, click on the video on the screen right now. It might be exactly what you need to watch next. A big hug. May God bless you and your family.